Hello, hi, and welcome to another episode of The Emma Gunn Show and a midweek instalment of Bullet Points. Now, Bullet Points is our little midweek catch up where we pick up from something that might have been said in the previous episode and potentially think about something else that runs in conjunction, somewhat adjacent to what we have been discussing previously. And to that end, I want to say thank you to everybody who got in touch and had something to say about the episode I recorded that went live a few days ago called When Good Podcasts Go Bad. I was extremely nervous to publish that episode of the podcast because it is something slightly outside of my comfort zone in that I expressed opinions. And I think what I have always tried to do as a journalist and as an interviewer is bring people onto the show to present an argument. And those people that I choose would let you know where I might stand, but I don't necessarily explicitly say. And that has served me quite well, but at the same time, I think in this day and age, people need to know what you stand for, what you think. And I think as long as we give each other the grace to change our minds or hear new information and decide to adapt and evolve our thoughts and feelings, and I think it's all really fair. But based on the feedback and based on where I was with everything in terms of podcasting and how frustrating it has been to see it sort of get the space to become suffocated for the people who came into it originally by people who have huge followings and a huge amount of money to spend on production, I felt like, that's been bubbling under the surface for a while. I think that's important that we talk about it. And actually, I've had some lovely messages. And in fact, someone sent me a really thoughtful message saying, you've made me realise that the way I listen to podcasts hasn't been supportive of the younger, so not younger because I ain't young, but the smaller creator. I have definitely been in a space where I've just been looking at what I've been fed, and all of those are out of big studios, or they are hosted by celebrities, or they are indeed, in the case of so many of them at the moment, hosted by people who are actual heirs to massive fortunes. So do they need to be in the podcasting space? No. Are they good at the podcasting space? Some of them, yes. But it's just what I'm trying to explain there is everybody is able. It's very democratic. That's what's always been great about it. But it's just that there are certain voices who are being elevated and platformed, and some really good content is being lost and missed and left behind. And I don't think I said this actually, when I was at the podcast show back in the summer, and I know it was a summer because it was tipping down with rain and I wore my Barber for the first time, my new Barber jacket. It's not new anymore, but I was so excited to wear it. I spoke to so many people there who had been in podcasting for a long time who were saying there are a lot of smaller shows that are going. There are a lot of shows that were doing very well during COVID. And when podcasting really exploded in the UK, where people went to podcasts for their entertainment, their company, their companionship, their community. And obviously since then things have changed. But so many of these smaller shows have just thrown in the towel because there is no revenue. And if you've been listening to this show for a while, you probably haven't heard me say, this episode of the podcast is brought to you by, because no one's as interested anymore in doing those sorts of ads. You might get fed something that's read by someone else. Anyway, that's all getting a little bit complicated and intricate, so let's move on from that. But I just did want to say that I've had really brilliant feedback from people saying it was really nice to hear how it's really been for you. It's actually really nice to hear you and express an opinion, and also the amount of people who've taken the time. I cannot tell you how touched I am by this. The amount of people who've taken the time to say, keep doing what you're doing. I really love that you've referenced old episodes. I went and listened to one of them today. You're right. It's absolutely brilliant. It's evergreen. It's timeless. I'll probably listen to it a few times. I'll listen to it at least once taking notes. That for me is such validation and is so wonderful. But also it's just a sign of how generous and brilliant this community and you lovely people are, you my most excellent listeners, to actually bother to sit down at your computer or sit on your phone or wherever it is that you're communicating and to actually take the time to get in touch. You have no idea how much that means and how moved I am every time I get a message like that. So thank you so much. But that I think brings me really neatly on to what I wanted to talk about in this bullet points. And as you know, these are the slightly shorter episodes. So I'm not actually going to do this, but I thought maybe we could do it together on one of the next longer episodes. And actually, it's something I was reticent to ever bring to the table. And it's probably why you haven't seen too much of this kind of content for me for a while because it's goal setting. And the reason why I've pulled back from a lot of this kind of content creation or this kind of thing is because I've seen a proliferation of it, and a proliferation of it in forms that are superficial, meaningless, and just sort of a show. It's very performative. Because actually, when you're setting goals, I've seen a lot of content, I've watched a lot of content where I've thought, you already know this person's incredibly privileged. You already know that this person's doing very, very well. So when they say they want to do something amazing, they're already halfway there. They've already got a leg up. And I just sort of think, well, it's not really fair or democratic or any of those things. But the reason why I thought it might be quite nice for us to explore goal setting, and specifically this idea of goal setting for 2025, is because of what happens to me in the run up to my birthday, which at the time of recording is yesterday. I find my birthday really upsetting, and I've talked about it and I wrote about it on my Substack recently. I think the fact that another year ticks over and I go through, and I'm obviously, if you've been here for a while, even if you've been here for this episode only, I'm an overthinker. So when something like a landmark birthday or any birthday comes around, I am instantly thrown into a minor existential crisis where I think about what I'm doing with my life, whether it's of any value, whether it's going well. And I'm never going to be that person that high fives myself and goes, yeah, this is great. Yeah, keep on. I will always find the nooks, the crannies, the holes, the leverage. I will find any way to get purchase on something that I can almost sort of punish myself for. It's not a great personality trait, but it is what it is. And so in the run up to my birthday, I was actually quite miserable. And I do what I normally do when I get miserable, and that's that I pull back. I pull back from my friends, I pull back from going out, I pull back from socializing. And weirdly, actually, I've found that I've been able to pull back and be very present on social media. It's sort of like, this makes me, presenting a false version of what's really going on, actually, like doing videos where I look relatively upbeat. I feel really comfortable doing that, but then as soon as the camera goes off, I'm like, and if you're watching on YouTube, you would have seen a sullen face. I sort of go into standby mode and I'm like, until I power up for the next morning. And I could feel it happening. I could feel it getting worse. And the day before my birthday, I just thought, I can't even crack a smile. And weirdly, for the first time in a really long time, I went into my birthday just thinking it's just any other day. And I went to a work dinner because I thought it was just my birthday. You know, no, I don't know what I'm expecting. It's a very spoiled, quite bratty, I think, part of my personality that I don't like to expose, but I sort of want it to be all bells and whistles. I want it to be the best day ever. Because it's my birthday, I want every coffee to taste better than any coffee that I've ever had before. I want the weather to be the nicest winter weather. I just sort of think it should be a sort of fairy tale day. Anyway, I ended up having the most incredible day yesterday. I got up, I exercised, I took a jaunt into London, I was running late. I had lunch at Bentley's, which is now definitely my favourite restaurant in London. It's also my dad's favourite restaurant. He absolutely loves it. He used to go there a lot when he worked in London. And it's just a very, very special place. The food is exquisite. The ambiance is absolutely stellar. And it's just a very comfortable, just incredible restaurant. Anyway, all of this is to say that I went and had a really lovely lunch, did a bit of shopping, and my friends, and I'm going to do an Instagram post on this, I needed to buy some shoes because, spoiler alert, I realised that I just can't wear trainers everywhere anymore. I thrived during COVID, and which means that some of my like thriving was when I was in trainers, and I need to let go of the trainers because I went into London yesterday and I wore quite a smart outfit, but I wore them with my trainers, and even I thought, no, you need a pair of low heel boots. And so Bentley's is just off Piccadilly. And so I thought, Bond Street, maybe Jimmy Choo, maybe Manono Blahnik, maybe, I don't know, Stella McCartney, maybe Hermes, just go into it. Anyway, no, YSL, no. I went to Clark's. I went to Clark's in my trainers. I saw a pair of boots and I said, kind madam, I should like to try those on in a size 7. I tried them on. They did not leave my feet. And to say that I was wearing my most comfortable trainers, my New Balance, and I put those on, and then I did another at least 6,000 steps walking up and down Oxford Street, and then walking around Covent Garden, went up to the Roof Terrace bar at the Royal Opera House. I still felt like I was in my trainers, so they are absolutely magnificent. Anyway, all that's to say, what was my point in saying about the shoes? I've just realised that I can't always be tethered to, well, this is comfortable, this is practical. I I sort of feel like with the advent of my birthday and on my birthday, and because I was having such a lovely day, and I sort of very instantly came out of this grump that happens every year, and I know that I'm not alone. I know that a lot of Christmas babies have this sort of thing, but I felt like, oh, I'm back in the game. And instantly, and I've been thinking about goal setting and what do I want for 2025. And I didn't want to do them. I'm going to write a goals list. And I'm going to do this. And I'm going to have a Birkin. I don't want any of that. And I find all of that really superficial and nonsense. But what I realised is this year has been a slog. And it has been a slog for a lot of people. In fact, the dinner that I was at last night, we were actually all talking about how 2024 has just seemed quite gloomy for lots of different reasons. And I mentioned that I thrived during lockdown. I really thrived when I didn't have any of the noise and chatter of socialising, of moving around. My world got quite small, but I was very comfortable with that. And I created a lot of content. I was creating tons of podcasts, and I was in my element. I loved it. I was very, very happy with my situation. And then COVID came to an end, and it has been a little bit of a shock that sort of there hasn't been the same, it's sort of, a lot of things just sort of seem to change. And where it had felt like everything was going my way, it felt like, honestly, like a lot of things weren't. And that was true for 2023, and I had really high hopes for 2024. And actually, 2024 has been a challenging year. I know that some listeners might have clocked onto this, but I ended up having to take 2 months off in the spring for personal reasons. And I very much put my life down completely, and then 2 months later had to pick it up. And I never felt like I ever really picked it up properly. And so that sort of, again, when I was having my birthday grumpiness, I was feeling that very heavily. Like, oh, I just don't feel like I've got into the groove. I'm not in any rhythm. I just don't feel fantastic. And so yesterday when I was coming home, I was thinking about the fact I felt really silly that I'd had such a lot of grumpiness and I'd been feeling so low because I couldn't have asked for a nicer birthday. The only way it could have been better is if I'd seen my family, but I was in London, and so I will see my family for separate birthday celebrations. But that's the only thing that could have improved it. It was really lovely otherwise. And I was in the car and I was thinking, I feel really silly because if you take today, and if you take the lovely evening that I had, if you take the lovely day that I have got nothing to complain about. But I am lost. I am a little bit lost. I am untethered from whatever it was that made me feel like I was cooking on gas in those years when I was alone, able to create content undisturbed, which there's a lot to be said for that anyway. And so I thought, I think it's really important that I do set some sort of intention. Ooh, even the words make me feel a little, because I just see pink, crystally, sound bathy, twinkly twonkly stuff, and I don't care for it. But I think one of the reasons why I was untethered, and I did find it so hard to pick my life back up this year, professionally and personally, is because I didn't know what I was trying to get back to. So even though I have something of a routine, I don't have the kind of routine, or I didn't have anything set in stone. And I think it would be really good to have clear goals and objectives to come back to at the beginning and at the end of every month, so that I constantly have a check-in, right? What did I achieve? Is there anything I can tweak so that what have you? So for example, I mentioned about the ad reads and things like that. I would really love for this podcast to feel the love from brands that I love. So I would like for there to be a reciprocal loving relationship. And that, to me, it makes really good sense to try to develop some long-term partnerships with brands that I use and love. And it makes sense. So for example, like Philip Kingsley, for example, if you're watching on YouTube, although don't look there because I've got a bump in my hair, but my angiodentic alopecia is much improved because of the treatment I've had at Philip Kingsley. I can't say enough good things about their products and their services. So I think it would be really obvious for a collaboration. So that's just an example. Maybe that will happen, maybe it won't. I hope it does. But it's one of those things of, okay, what are the brands that I work with know and love and use and spend my money on. Yes, I'm gifted a lot of things for my job, but what are the brands that I would go out and spend my money on? I would like to cultivate relationships with those. So that's a really strong professional goal for me. And I don't mean just here and there, I mean long-term partnerships. Because actually, one thing I do know about, and I'm a Sagittarius, so you know this too if you know Sagittarius, I'm loyal. I'm very loyal. Loyal to a fault almost. And so I would just like to support those brands that I absolutely adore, and I would like to have working relationships with them. I would also like to, on a personal note, I would like to get much better at making time for my friends. Again, there have been some unfortunate friends haven't been very well this year, and that's been so difficult to watch. And I'm very good at saying to my friends, oh, we'll do it another time, like I've got this work thing to do. I'm very good at putting off my friends. And I don't want to do that anymore, because you kind of get to this age and you realise, oh gosh, when are you putting off until? So I want to be very clear about setting some goals. Like I would like to go away with some of my friends. I'd just like to do like a girly weekend or go away for a night and just have a night where we go away, get a load of food, we all cook something up or like have something snacky and just sit down and put the world to rights, and just we're all comfortable and we laugh like that. Those sorts of evenings where you have a belly laugh, but they can be spontaneous, and I think those things happen quite spontaneously when you're younger, but I think as you get older, that kind of spontaneity just doesn't exist, because as I was saying to a friend the other day, I very much, because of my personality as well, I feel as though I have this very strong elastic cord that pulls me back to my home, and I am a vampire, or the opposite of a vampire, in that I'm running away from a vampire, in that elastic cord pulls me. It lets me leave when it's daylight, but it wants me home before dark. But that means that you're cutting, especially at this time of year, you're cutting yourself off from a huge part of life. And I've never been a party animal or anything like that, but those sort of spontaneous nights out, or those spontaneous afternoons that turn into a dinner, that turn into just a really good chatting session, just are much fewer and farer between as you get older. And I want to make sure I cultivate time for that. And I also just sort of, I've talked about this before, years ago, I think, but I just want to text check in with my friends, and I feel really silly doing it. Like every now and again, I'll just say, hey, I'm just thinking of you. Hope you're okay, or like just something, because I think about my friends a lot, but what I don't do is actually let them know that I'm thinking about them or let them know that I care about them. So there are all these sorts of professional, personal, and private, whatever it is, or these professional and personal things that I want to make sure are consistent, because I do think that having some sort of consistency, having some sort of goal, having something to check into is really positive. But I don't want to present it in a way that is airy-fairy or wishy-washy, or sort of let's create a really pretty mood board, because then you get caught in the aesthetics. And I just want to think, okay, what do I want? That I was really fortunate during the lockdown years, because podcasts really thrived, and at the time I was one of the first people to have brought a podcast to the sort of beauty space in the UK, and so it did very, very well, thank you very much. But now things have changed, and obviously the podcast changed hugely during that time. I want to be able to, I want to be sure. I think what I did is when things started to come to an end, I thought, right, I've got to turn this into a business, because that's what I saw lots of people around me doing. But that isn't the right thing for me. And I think I held on so tightly to what it felt like that I wasn't really being aware of the fact that it was changing around me. And this year has actually been a year of, there's been no sense of control whatsoever. And actually a few months ago, I just thought, I'm just going to let go. I am just going to let go and just trust that, okay, financially, it's probably not going to be a great year. And it's not anywhere where I would like it to be, for many reasons in lots of areas, particularly professionally. So I'm just going to let go and let the inspiration come, and stop being Lenny from Of Mice and Men and holding on and sort of suffocating the lady or the little rodent. But I just sort of wanted to let go a little bit and sort of come back with a refreshed, much more positive, because I think when you're grabbing on so tightly, you can be quite negative, and you can actually, as I say, be throttling it. So I want to come back, and I wanted to do it now. I feel like doing it midway through the month before Christmas hits is much better than doing it between Christmas and New Year, when you're trying to rush this inspiration and rush this new version of you. And what does the new version of me look like? Oh, she looks like this. Well, no, I want to think about it a little bit more, and so I'm taking the space now. So this is all to say that I'm thinking about. Hopefully that didn't ruin everything. I am thinking about on the next episode doing my step by step that you can come along with me on or not, but my step by step of how I'm going to set some goals. And maybe I'll share some of mine with you, and maybe you want to share some of yours with me. But I think it might be quite useful to just go through what that might look like and how that might feel. Because there are things that you can control and there are things that you can't control. And when a lot of the stuff that you can't control happens, I've realised this year it's really important to have something solid to come back to. And if you haven't taken the time to think about what that is, then you could come unstuck. And that's definitely been my experience this year. And so I think, okay, if I've got something solid to come back to, then hopefully, even if I am derailed, it won't be as difficult as it's been this year again, because I'll have this in place. So I'm going to think about what that's going to look like between now and the next episode, and then I'll come back to you. And let me know if you want to hear that or not. If you really don't, say, for the love of God, Emma, don't do that, because I'll be bored to tears, and I won't do it. Or maybe I'll just do it on Instagram. But I'd be so interested to hear your thoughts. As I keep saying, you're so clever. You're such a bright, articulate bunch that whenever you get in touch with me, I take so much from it. So if you have any thoughts and feelings about goal setting, if you have any resources that you think I should be looking at before this, if you have any suggestions for what's worked for you, then please do let me know. You can email me at office@emmaguns.com. You can DM me on Instagram where I'm at emmaguns, and you can comment underneath this video if you're watching on YouTube, or you can go over to my Substack where I'm also going to be talking about this, and you can comment under there. Substack does seem to be the place where there is a lot more community-spirited interaction and engagement and comments and chat. So if you would like to engage in a little bit more of that based on these episodes, then please do go over there, and the link to subscribe will be in my Substack. I've also, I think, figured out a new way of filming that if you're watching this on YouTube, I'm no longer having to sit there, film, take everything out, edit, sync audio. I'm hoping that by doing this at the computer, I might have found a way that means I have to do far less heavy lifting. If it doesn't work, I'll be livid and I'll have to record this entire thing again. So please do, if you hear this, then take one made it live, and I did not have to do any jiggery pokery or re-record. But thank you so much for listening. You know how much I appreciate your time. I know it is a very, very busy, congested, overcrowded, and really dazzling podcast space. So the fact that you've taken the time to listen to me, spend time with me, whether it's in your earpods, in your car stereo, or on YouTube, I am so, so grateful. And yes, please do get in touch. Let me know about goal setting. Let me know about, you might have noticed I haven't used the word resolutions, but let me know about any goal setting tips, anything that you think I should know, and if you would like me to go through this on the next episode. That's it for now. Thank you so much for listening. I will see you on the next one.